You should avoid these common raft mistakes. Hi friends, and welcome back to Raft. With the advent of the final chapter on the horizon and Raft probably moving away from early access, a lot of people are going to pick up this ocean survival simulator for the first time. Or we might see some people return to the water after an extended break. But a lot has changed since Raft first released on Steam in 2018, and you may find yourself falling into some pits of mistakes that could be avoided with proper planning. So let's talk about 10 common mistakes that new Raft players make, and how to avoid them. First up, you're probably not making a weapon fast enough. The wooden spear is available from the start of the game, and it's an essential tool for your early success. It only costs 3 rope and 8 planks to make, but it can save you so much time and resources by defending your raft. Realistically, this should be one of the first 3 things you craft, the other 2 being a spare hook and a build hammer. The shark will attack your raft roughly every 5 minutes, but you can prevent him from destroying your foundations by stabbing him with your wooden spear, saving you multiple planks and plastic every time you do so. Early in the game, gathering resources is your top priority, and saving resources is always a net benefit. How many times you need to stab the shark to get him off of your raft depends on your difficulty choice. If you're in Peaceful, you can disregard this tip entirely because Jeremiah will never attack you or your raft. In Easy and Normal, it takes 3 hits. Hard is an entirely different story, but I'm assuming most people don't start in hard difficulty. With good timing, you can also defend yourself against the shark attacks in the water by stabbing Jeremiah as he lunges at you. So the wooden spear really is a lifesaver that you should be making as soon as possible. Second, you're not setting yourself up with a sustainable food and water source early enough. When I was first starting to play Raft, I struggled quite a bit with managing my hunger and thirst, but it's easy to do once you understand that you need to think long-term over immediate survival. That may seem counterintuitive right at the start of the game, but if you want to live longer than 13 minutes, you probably don't want to cook that first potato you get from a barrel. Realistically, you should make a small crop plot, place it under your research table so that seagulls won't bother it, and start your garden. By the time you'll need food, you'll almost certainly have enough resources to make a fishing rod, and that's where things really start to take off. If you alternate between fishing and cooking off your crops, be sure to always replant everything before cooking, then you'll be golden in terms of hunger management. For fish specifically, try not to cook off herring and pomfrets. They're useful for other things that we'll go over later. Tilapia and mackerel, on the other hand, you should be eating whenever you can. Thirst management is a bit easier. Just make 2 plastic cups instead of 1. Then you should always have 1 cup of water in the purifier and 1 in hand for emergencies. The third thing isn't necessarily a mistake, but it's a collection of stuff you should know that isn't immediately obvious from what the game tells you. Like the fact that you can immediately retrieve your hook from the water by right-clicking if you didn't catch anything, so you don't have to waste your time reeling in all of that seawater that is definitely attached to your hook. Or the way that you can craft materials you need for other crafting recipes by hovering over their icon and pressing that big green plus sign. Another major feature to keep in mind is that you'll need a research table to get access to many of the more advanced crafting recipes, so you should craft one of those bad boys early on and start researching ASAP. One of the big things to keep in mind for anyone playing in multiplayer is to build a bed on your raft as soon as you can. That's because your buddy can come revive your lifeless body when you inevitably die, attempting to stab Jeremiah underwater, plop you down in that handy bed, and you won't lose any of your precious items that you've been working so hard for. Fourth, you should be prioritizing collection nets as early as you can. After researching nails, planks, and rope, you get access to the simple collection net that will passively gather any floating debris that wanders into its path. Because collection nets are passive and gather materials over time, that means the more time you have them on your raft, the more items you'll get. Especially when you're just beginning in Raft, your resource availability determines a lot of your success, so having access to more resources is a huge benefit long term. In terms of collection net placement, you shouldn't have your nets as the outermost layer of your raft. Always try to protect them with a layer of foundations because the nets are significantly more expensive to replace than the occasional foundation if Jeremiah does destroy things every once in a while. But on that same note, you're probably making the very common beginner's mistake of plopping everything in the center of your raft and just building out so that it won't be destroyed. While that's a reasonable instinct, you really don't need to confine yourself to those central 4 squares when you're building a 10 by 10 raft. Jeremiah will only attack the outside edge, and even then, he's significantly more likely to attack the corners first. Really, Jeremiah has a 30% chance of attacking corners, and only a 5% chance of attacking any interior piece. If you really want to protect your raft before you get access to the resources necessary to fortify your raft to prevent attacks entirely, you could always make what I like to call the sacrificial foundations. If you place 2 foundations out in a random direction from your raft, the end piece will always have a 37% chance of being attacked, making it the most likely option. The further out you go from the center of your raft, the more likely it is that the sacrificial foundation will always be chosen, effectively saving the many at the cost of one. So if you want to protect your raft and actually make use of all of that space you're creating, just build a little tower on the side and you're good to go. Then you can actually walk around your raft without having to jump over 47 chests to get to your water purifier. The 6th big mistake that new players often make is not properly harvesting the islands that they stumble across. Islands hold the majority of the resources that you need to advance in the game, and you only find them every so often, so really making the most out of them will help you in the long run. Most of the resources on islands are found underwater, so you'll need to prepare for that a little bit using the herrings and pomfrets I told you to avoid cooking for food earlier. Those 2 fish can be used to craft shark bait. Also note that you just need 2 of these fish, so that could be 1 of each or 2 of the same, it doesn't matter. Shark bait lasts for about 80 seconds as soon as Jeremiah starts attacking it, but he also won't attack you for an additional 20 seconds after the bait is destroyed. This gives you a total of 100 seconds, over a minute and a half of shark-free time to harvest resources per shark bait. If you've been alternating between fishing and resource gathering, like I suggested earlier, you'll probably have a pretty good stock of herring and pomfrets to use up to make shark bait. But once you're underwater, there are certain resources you should be specifically harvesting over others. Frankly, you don't need more than 10 seaweed in the early game. From a speedrunner's perspective, you only need 21 seaweed in total to beat the whole game, so don't feel the need to collect every glowing green orb that you find. Metal and copper, however, you should definitely snap up when you see them. Those can be used in plenty of advanced crafting recipes, but most importantly, you'll want at least 14 of each sand and clay from your first island. Those will get you access to the smelter so that you can actually use all of that metal and copper you're picking up. Other resources like stone and scrap you can get out of barrels as you go, so don't grab those if you're in a time crunch. Most of the stuff on land you can flat out ignore. You'll get more planks from your collection nets than you will from the trees anyways, but sometimes fruit can be nice. That metal that you smelt down using all of your fancy resources that you've collected can help you avoid the next major pitfall. Always grade your equipment when you can. It's such a quality of life improvement to go from a super slow plastic hook to the fancy scrap hook when you have the resources for it. You'll be wasting less time crafting stuff, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck with the advanced tools. It is well worth your time and resources to craft the metal fishing rod and make an advanced grill and all of that good stuff. I struggled for a long time with the basic tools, and I'm telling you right now that you do not have to. It is so much easier to get new stuff with the fancier tools, and it makes it well worth it. Number 8 is also pretty simple, but it'll save you a bit of a headache. You know those blueprints you find in barrels? You do not need to keep them. Don't bother clogging up your precious little storage space with pieces of paper that honestly serve no purpose once you've held them. All of the blueprint recipes are stored in your research table, and you just need to research the proper materials to get access to whatever the blueprint was for. Literally, as soon as you pick up the blueprint, just drop it back in the water for the next unsuspecting soul, and you won't have missed out on anything. Just remember to keep researching. And if it seems like something is missing from your research table, just scroll back up to the top. That still confuses me sometimes. For number 9, you'll need to have access to the receiver and antenna, which are those blueprints you found in barrels earlier. Now, the game doesn't tell you this until after you've made and placed all of these, and it thoroughly confused me when I first started, but you cannot place these at sea level. They have to be at least 1 full wall height above your foundations. Higher than that makes no difference, but they do have to be slightly raised. Furthermore, each piece, meaning all 3 antennae, yes you need 3 of them, and the receiver all have to be more than 2 full foundations away from each other. That means you can't just whack them all in one corner and hope for the best. You will have to make a space that is at least 6 by 3 in dimension at the bare minimum. Once you turn the receiver on, keep in mind that the dots are always shown in the direction relative to where the receiver is pointed, so I'd highly recommend making it face the front of your raft for easy interpretation. Also, the green dots are large islands and the blue dots are story islands. And mistake number 10 is not paying enough attention to those story locations. Raft has an incredibly rich and complicated story, and I feel like a lot of beginner players let the excitement of finding these unique islands overwhelm them, and then you don't really get to take in all of the details. The story in Raft is told through a series of notes that are scattered around a given location, so you have to thoroughly explore and gather these notes to really understand what came of the world and why there's water everywhere. If you're not paying attention, it'll go straight over your head, and you'll miss the whole point of the game. But if you did collect all of the notes and you still don't understand the story, I took the liberty of explaining it for you, so go check out that video if you're still confused by what the notes mean. But that's 10 mistakes that new Raft players make and how you can not make those mistakes yourself. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you made these mistakes when you were first starting out, or if you now know how to avoid them if you're beginning your own Raft journey. Anyways, that's it for me for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please consider leaving a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. It really helps me out. I hope to see you all again soon, but until then, have a great day.